Okay, I'm recording now. The topic for the day is team safety. It is going to be a combination of, in a sense, teamwork, and it's going to be in a supervised approach. So there are going to be some differences in terms of looking at it from a coach's perspective. So those of you who are not very familiar with the supervision approach, just to give you an idea of what the differences are, which we've been talking about for a while. In supervision, we are going to be using what is called the 7-eyed model, which is probably the most commonly used model, which is used in supervision, similar to something like GROW model, which is used in coaching. In the case of coaching, the objective is pretty much the outcome. So you start with defining the outcome, what are the benefits of the outcome, and so on. In the session, what are you going to achieve? But in supervision, outcome is not the objective. The objective is about the process, because here we are actually working with a coach who is experienced and who's been coaching other people. So the coach brings about certain cases with their clients, and they want to know whether the process is right, is it ethical, and these are the issues that I'm facing, and so on. So supervision is really coaching coaches. And the supremacy here is not about the objectives, and it's about, as I said, the process. And so there will be certain changes that you will see, and which for a person who is still learning to be a coach, or even if you're already a PCC credentialed person, it may seem odd that, that some of the questions are phrased differently. So I'll try to explain to you very quickly what the 7 lenses, 7 eyes through which we'll be looking at the interaction today, as in supervision. The first 4 are pretty similar to coaching. The first 4 lenses when a supervisor is working with a coach. I hate to use the word supervisee, so I'll be using the word supervisor, coach, and the client. And the client is a coach's client, whose case is usually being brought into this space for discussion. The first thing is about, the first 4 lenses are pretty much about the coach who is coaching a client and who's being supervised by a supervisor. And these lenses are pretty similar to what you find in coaching. A little bit about the client, a little bit about what transactions a coach is using, a bit about the relationship that they both have, and finally about the awareness of the coach. As if, like in a coaching conversation, the client is talking about the awareness that's coming up, the coach will be talking about their awareness. The last 3 are significantly different, and sometimes they could be extremely useful in a coaching situation. So as a supervisor, once you really know the boundaries, you could enhance your capabilities as a coach in a very, very major way when you understand what supervision is about. So the 5th lens is about, let's say you are the coach and you are dealing with a supervisor at this point in time, and you have been working with some clients who are, let's say, pose you some issues, which is what you want to discuss. And the supervisor might notice that there are certain parallels in the way that you are dealing with the supervisor, which are similar to what you say is happening between you and the client. For example, there may be a client who's stuck, and the client is not able to move, is not able to articulate fully what the problems are, and how do I move forward. And when the coach is talking to the supervisor, maybe the coach is exhibiting the same kind of symptoms as the client does towards the supervisor. I just note it down. At a later point in time, I'll clarify it. It might be very difficult just in one session to understand everything. So the parallel processing could be between the coach and the client, between the coach and some other situations, something that the coach experiences outside of that session with the supervisor, which the supervisor feels is reflective of the way that he behaves or she behaves with the supervisor. That's a parallel process. So a good supervisor would sort of bring about this to the awareness of the coach. She lets them know, is this a pattern? Is this happening again and again for you? And so what is then happening here to create greater awareness within the coach? The 6th lens is a space where it's somewhat different from in coaching, but not that different. The supervisor expresses the supervisor's own reflections and awareness about what's happening as the coach is sort of exploring the issue with a supervisor. Typically, even up to the PCC level, it's normally, even as trainers, we do not encourage you too much to do that, because it requires a certain amount of maturity, it requires a certain amount of subtlety to be able to do that. But at the mastery level, yes, we do encourage people, the coaches, to be able to convey what they feel intuitively in an appropriate manner with a client. It's an escalated version of the direct communication with awareness from the coach. So this is something which is significantly different as far as the supervision lenses are concerned. And the last one, again, which is very useful in coaching, but is not often practiced, is about what is called as a systemic aspect of coaching. So it is not only about the coach when he or she is interacting with a supervisor, about what is happening just with the client, but it's also about what are the other things that are happening around there. Are there other organizational issues which are coming up, especially if it's an executive kind of coaching, or even if it's a life coaching, are there other members who are interacting differently? So it's a kind of a global view. It's a much more systemic kind of view. And those of you who are familiar with Laura Whitworth, and if you haven't read her, please do. Her coactive coaching is an absolute classic. There she talks about 3 levels of listening. The first one is an internal dialogue. The second one is a focused coach-client dialogue. And the third one, what she calls a global listening. And the global listening is about a 360 viewpoint. Are you able to listen to the situation, not just about the who of the client, the what of the client, but in a larger sense? And that makes a huge difference. And so John Whitmore talks about it in terms of his transpersonal style of coaching, where you move beyond just the personal aspects into a larger, perhaps even a spiritual domain. So these things become very important when you look at it from the perspective of supervision lenses. So I'll stop here. I do not want to go too deep into this. So what I'm trying to do today, or what I'll be doing today, is actually a bit of an experiment. The supervision with teams, of course, it is being done. There are many people who are doing this stuff, but here with this group, and in a sense, my own limited experience with combining supervision and team, perhaps there is a certain amount of trial and error that's going to happen today. So do not look for any perfection. But before we start into this, what I would like to I had actually mentioned it in my mail to you, with all of you, to read up what is called the Project Aristotle report of Google, which to my mind is one of the best documentation that is available today. The official version of Google is not available, but there are a lot of other write-ups based on that. And there is also a very famous book called The Dysfunctions of a Team by Lencioni, which is much older. In fact, there is a bit of a correspondence between the two. Simplicity's sake, let me very quickly articulate the functions of a team as Project Aristotle, which was done by Google with over 20,000 people. The most important of that is called psychological safety. The psychological safety is the determinant of a team, whether it's working well or not working well. This is what we are going to cover today. That's why I'm calling the topic of this today's discussion to be team safety. Based on the psychological safety, there is dependability within the team. And then there are 3 things which are related to the kind of outcome that the team is being set, or within the team, there's a co-creation. It's about the clarity of the outcome, it's about the structure of the outcome, and the impact of the outcome outside of the organization. But today we are going to talk only about the psychological safety, or we are going to work with you in terms of psychological safety as far as these 5 volunteers are concerned. In a very, very simple way, there could be multiple definitions of psychological safety. The psychological safety is about a person in the team, the ability of the person, the feeling of the person that they are able to openly communicate without fear of being criticized, without fear of being ostracized, and so on and so forth. So they have the freedom of expression within the team to be able to be open and direct. And that's what psychological safety is about, without which the team cannot function, obviously, because each one is really being very guarded. They do not want to express to the others what they are feeling within their minds, and that becomes a dysfunction. and many other issues of conflict and so on arise as a result of that. However, there is one thing that I want to leave with you. Now, there are many people who would like to have psychological safety, but they also need to provide psychological safety to other people. Therefore, those who seek psychological safety in a team should also be very careful that they are not in some way making other people feel unsafe, whether those people are present in that particular group or they are outside of the group. Words will carry, and therefore there is a responsibility as well as a freedom that comes with psychological safety. And I want you to bear that in mind. This is one of the most important things that people who are executives, managers, they need to realize when they are working with teams. It'll enormously help them if they first work to create that element of psychological safety outside of the coaching arena, so to speak. So we will start the session now. So I would like you 5 people, Stephanie, Vivek, Aarti, Vijay, and Mohan, you can unmute yourself or you can mute and you can answer me as and when I ask you a question. So the first question I want to start with each one of you is, are you at this point in time in this session, are you feeling safe, psychologically safe, based on the definition that I gave you? So Stephanie, if you could start, followed by Vivek, followed by Mohan, followed by Aarti, followed by Vijay. Thank you. Yes, Stephanie. Yeah. Hello, can't hear you, Stephanie. You're muted. Aarti, I think your mic, there is something wrong. If you can keep it muted for the time being. Hello. Yeah. Somebody else also. So if all of you can just keep it muted and speak. Stephanie, can you answer the question? Are you feeling psychologically safe? No, I can't hear you. There's something wrong with your audio.
Right now?
Yeah, you're okay. You're okay.
Okay, I feel safe.
Yeah, okay, good. Let's leave it at that for the moment. Vivek, Mohan.
Yes, yeah, I do feel very safe. Yeah.
Yeah, Mohan.
Safe but nervous.
Safe but nervous. Okay, good. Is that in a yes, no, maybe? Is it a maybe?
It's a definite yes.
Yeah.
But I can't hide the mild flutter.
Okay, we'll come back to you. Aarti and Vijay, please.
Yes, Ram, I feel safe.
Okay, Vijay?
Yeah, I feel safe too.
Okay. If I were to ask you at this point in time, there is one team member out of the 5 of you, Mohan, who's feeling nervous about something. He says he's psychologically safe, but he is still saying that he's nervous about something. So what is it that you feel before he answers? What is your feeling about what is needed to make him feel not so nervous? Again, if you could just follow the same order for now, starting with Stephanie.
Because I knew everyone, I just knew everyone, so psychologically I feel safe in this platform, but I have uncertain what is next.
No, I'm not asking about you. I'm asking about, there's another person in the team, okay. Mohan, he's feeling nervous. So I just want very, very brief answers. What is it that you think you can do to make him less nervous?
Express more.
He or you?
Both.
Both, okay. So in order for him to express more, what would you then do?
Listening.
Okay.
Active listening.
Okay. So we'll leave it at this for the moment. Yeah, Vijay, what about you?
Ram, I think first I would try to understand what's causing his nervousness. Give him a space where he can express that. Try to be appreciative of that. And the second is to probably lead and show the way.
He's already told you that it is not that he's feeling unsafe, but he's feeling nervous, maybe because he doesn't know what's going to happen. It's not unsafe. So he's already told you. So with that context, what is it that you can make him feel less nervous?
So just, maybe by making myself more vulnerable, so he sees that it's okay. The nervousness probably may be unfounded. So by another example, he may get that confidence.
Okay. So are you therefore saying that you will also, even if you're not, you will act nervous to show that you are vulnerable?
No. The other way around. I will not act vulnerable, but I will open myself up to vulnerability so that his nervousness can go seeing my experience. When the team deals with me in a certain way and I'm not sort of nervous, I'm going through the process.
Okay, fine. Yeah, thanks. We'll be brief here because there's quite a lot to cover. Okay, Vijay, Aarti, what about you?
Ram, the best way is to talk about it, and to because it could be that it's a fear of uncertainty, that how the team exercise is going to unfold, which is making him nervous. So finding exactly what is the cause of nervousness or the flutter which he mentioned. Communication is the key, and making him having a more detailed discussion with him as to what is going to happen in the exercise today will make him better.
Okay. All of you, just be very brief. Just address a point, maybe 1 point or 2 points. Thank you, but it's relevant. And when you talk about what's going to happen, even I don't know what's going to happen. So all of you should feel quite nervous, actually. So anyway, Vivek, what about you?
Yeah, 2 points actually. When he said nervous, or when I hear that he's nervous, I actually felt a little nervous myself. But I think in response to that, I would share more and express myself more, try and go closer to him communication-wise.
Okay, thanks. Okay, so now, Mohan, having listened to the other 4 comment upon your nervousness, is there a response that you have? Are you less nervous or more nervous now?
No, I'm not more nervous. I'm actually, in a sense, more settled now, feeling a little more settled.
Okay.
And what made me feel, I don't want to, do you want me to select which of these responses would be best for me and stuff?
Okay.
Like that, or
yeah. No, just quickly, yes. If you could select one best response, yeah.
Okay, so I lean more in terms of what Vijay said, and Vivek perhaps was tending towards the same thing. But if I were to look at myself, if I were to place myself outside my body and, perhaps in one of the other seats, my tendency would be to just be good, just be yourself and just let things go on and not necessarily comment or anything on this.
Okay.
And let it express itself in some way from him, without us necessarily forcing the issue in any way, because he feels psychologically safe. So if he's psychologically safe, the chances are he will express himself. And if he's expressing himself, then that itself may cause something in him, and and then that is then.
So 1 second, Mohan.
Is a different moment. So
who's the he you are talking about?
I'm talking about myself.
Oh,
if you are myself outside. Yeah.
Okay, so you are disengaging yourself from yourself, and you're talking about yourself.
Okay. So if I were to look at another person who said the same thing, I would probably leave him alone because he's psychologically safe. So he's likely to speak and open up anyway.
Okay.
So there is nothing specific I think I may need to do, but that's my opinion.
Okay. So let me probe you a little further on this because it's important. Normally, people engage themselves more in order to feel safe, like what I think Vivek said. What you're saying is that you would like to disengage yourself to feel more safe. Am I interpreting you right?
Perhaps not, Ram, or maybe I'm misunderstanding what you said. But I think where I'm coming from is that the nervousness is less about the exercise as much as does it really require me to what is going to be it's part excitement, it's a nervousness, part excitement.
Okay, Mohan. So yeah, in the interest of time, I just want all of you to reflect on that, because it's something which is coming up, which is different from what people would normally say. Hey, like most of them said that if we interact more with you, we explore more with you, you would feel less nervous. But there was something that I thought I heard from what you said, that if I'm able to be disengaged, or I'm a fly on the wall, using the word he instead of me. So that's what I understood. But anyway, I'll leave it at that for the time being.
You were right, Ram. You were right, Ram, and that's where I was coming to finally. But you said it well.
Yeah. Okay. So now, what I would like to do is, let's start with you. Each one of you, I would like you, without being, without being a little bit anonymous in this, describe a situation that you may have experienced being psychologically unsafe yourself, or be in a situation where somebody else was feeling psychologically unsafe. It doesn't have to be a coach-client relationship. It could be, it's more relevant if it's in a team, because we are talking about a team. So if you have very brief, just about 30 seconds, if you could tell us what such an experience was, where you experienced psychological unsafety, as it were, either for yourself or someone else. Thank you. Start with Mohan, then we will go through Vivek, Aarti, Vijay, and then Stephanie.
So I'm trying to think of a recent incident. Perhaps, and I don't find much, but perhaps nothing not so recent from 2 years ago. I felt once distinctly in the sense of being psychologically unsafe when I was with a group of consultants, and they were all consultants from among the big four. And we were jointly taking something to a third-party client. So that was an interaction where I did not feel comfortable enough to be able to state my own company's position in the best possible way.
Okay, so let us hold it there. I don't want too much of the situational details, but yeah, this is good to go. So similarly, can we start with each one of you? I'll be coming back to you later. Vivek, can you tell us about an incident? Yeah.
Yes, very recent, not very far away. One of the board meetings, I quickly found out that one of the directors pretty much had an agenda that he was trying to make his impression in front of the chairman. And so he was almost picking up on everybody when they said something and would take it to extreme. And I think everybody realized it, and suddenly the room fell. There were no arguments going the way they should be, or so everybody was very brief and not trying to make a lot of points. So I think that was one situation where I felt very uncomfortable and pretty much, yeah.
Great example. Okay, Vijay.
Yeah, I recently had an experience with one of these WhatsApp groups, and where there was a sense of being psychologically, not very safe. And the reason because I felt that way was largely because when people have preconceived notions and judgments of you, and you probably are aware of that, you sort of start measuring every word or every action that you virtually do on the group. That brings in an unsafe space.
Okay, let's stay there. While I'm going through other people, each one of you who has already stated your cases, I just want you to think through that, start experiencing that situation again, and then we'll come back to you. Okay, Aarti?
Ram, this is about one operation which we did in Air Force during one of the war zone. And there was a senior of us who actually made a mistake, and because of which we had some issue with the operations. But instead, he tried to put that blame on the junior officers because his promotion was at stake. So that was one time where I felt it was psychologically very unsafe.
Okay, thank you. Stephanie?
Recently, I also have a one situations. I have a one German client appreciate me very much, but after 12 sections, she sent the feedback to my manager. My manager misunderstood the feedback and think she was complaining and set up a call. At that moment, I felt very nervous and didn't know what happened. But at the end, I find out my manager misunderstood the feedback comment.
Okay, thank you.
But it annoyed me for whole days.
Okay. So let me reverse it and start with you. Now that your experience, what you have expressed is fresh. At that point in time, when you are getting this feedback and you were in that situation of psychological not safe space, what was your feeling? What did you feel?
I don't understand. I scared the negative feedback from others.
Okay, so you were scared. Is that
Yes.
is that a feeling? Okay, and you were
scared, uncertain, didn't know what happened.
Okay, so the scared and uncertainty. Let me go a little deeper. For a moment, if you were to maybe close your eyes and think about this emotion of being scared, being in that situation, being unsure, uncertain, where did you feel that emotion?
My heart.
Your heart. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, we'll come back to the interpretation of that later, but thank you. Okay, Aarti, the same question. Yeah. What was your feeling at that time? You were not the person in the firing line, so to speak, but somebody else was. But what was your feeling at that time?
I felt a little helpless that because of the hierarchy and because that person has a upper edge, being a senior, he's not allowing us to, voice out the thing to the other people who could be, in the other line of management. I felt helpless.
Mm-hmm.
I felt afraid that what he's saying, if people also believe, it might affect my promotions, my future prospects. I also felt insecure that people are not hearing out the whole story and they are believing in the one part of it.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
a little bit of cheated,
Yeah. So all these feelings together, the helplessness, the insecurity, and so on. Again, the same way as Stephanie experienced. If you just close your eyes and if you tell me where is it in your body you feel this emotion now when you think about it.
I feel it in my entire body. I feel an adrenaline rush in my blood still, reminiscing that incident. Yeah.
Okay. Is there one more than the other? Is there anything within the body that you are able to feel, or you're just saying you are totally viscerally affected totally?
No, like Stephanie said, the heart is what is more affected, that you are, the emotions bubble up again, thinking about that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. Thanks. Vijay, what about you? What is your feeling and where do you feel it?
Ram, such situations make me feel disengaged.
Mm-hmm.
And often my response to disengagement is in my breath.
Okay.
So, I feel the breathing pattern is not normal, because when it's normal, it's healthy. There's a rhythm. Mm-hmm. So this sort of goes, up and down. The breath goes very, very arrhythmically.
Okay.
So I don't feel, I lose my harmony.
Okay. So what you're saying, if I understood you correctly, it's not as if you are feeling an emotion which you could describe, but there is some disturbance, and that disturbance is reflected in the way that your breathing pattern changes. It becomes arrhythmic. Is that what you're saying?
Right, but there is emotion.
Yeah.
Emotion, but not in the heart. So
what is that emotion?
Of lack of harmony, of lack of rhythm. I'm disturbed.
Okay. So is that something, if you want to, is it stressed? Is it different from being stressed?
Not sure, Ram.
Okay. Anyway, let's leave it at that at this point in time. Okay, Vivek, what about you? What was your feeling and did you experience it? Yeah.
Yes. I think the initial feeling was I felt suffocated
Mm-hmm.
and started feeling the whole exercise as meaningless.
Mm-hmm.
Became very uneasy, and like Vijay said, I think even my breath changed, and I think the emotion, I was completely stressed, I would say. I just wanted to cut it out or do something, but the decorum and whatnot. So
Okay.
that was me.
Okay. Was there any particular part of the body that when you think about it now, you feel it, or is it just the breath?
Yeah, I think it was my heart, which was just probably pumping very fast. And
Okay.
if I was allowed, I would jump out of my chair, stand up, and I'd walk out or say something to
Okay.
stop this.
Okay. Okay. Mohan? Hello, Mohan? Are you muted? What happened? Yeah, Mohan, are you muted? Hello?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, okay.
So basically, I felt, Ram, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Please. Hello. You're muted, Mohan. Hello. We can't hear you. Are you having a problem? Hello. Hello. Okay. So let's give him some time to come back. Now, within the four of you now, you have a group of four till such time as Mohan joins. If I were to ask you to choose one of the cases that you all have presented, like Stephanie was talking about this feedback from a client which was misunderstood. Aarti was talking about the senior blaming the junior person to preserve himself. And Vijay is talking about the reaction to a WhatsApp group. And you, Vivek, you were talking about this incident where the chairman was sort of putting himself above other people and so on. Each of which in some way or another creates a psychologically unsafe space. If you would like to go deeper into this exploration, which case would you like to choose? You can say your own case. I'll go by in the group, whatever majority comes up. Very quickly, you just have to say this one's case. And Mohan, if you're able to join, please join too. Yeah, starting with you, Stephanie.
I use my case.
Use your case. Okay, Vivek.
Yeah, I am very close to my case, so I would be very happy with my case.
Okay, so that's not going to work because ultimately we're going to choose one. So then I will have to decide. So it's up to you guys. Okay.
I'm good with Stephanie's case.
You are going with Stephanie's case, Vijay. Okay, yeah. Aarti. Hello.
So let me jump in, Ram.
Yeah.
I'm good with Stephanie's case.
Okay. So yeah. So let's say two of you have said, even the other two, okay, we're going to be in a bind. Let's go with Stephanie's case for what it is. It's not because that case is better than somebody else's or whatever it is, but so Stephanie, what we are going to do now is to go a little deeper into this issue of what you feel, which is about, as we understood it, was about a client feedback to you, which was not understood properly by your manager. And though it was not a team meeting, it was a space where the interaction was psychologically unsafe for you because of the misunderstanding. And you, at that point in time, were feeling scared, you were feeling uncertain, etc. Okay. So we already asked her about awareness in terms of the feeling and let's say where it lies within the body. Now, each one of you, in turn, what I would like to have you ask Stephanie, what in supervision is called the lens 4, in terms of her awareness, different from what I have asked. Anything is okay, and you can build on each other's. And if there's something that's coming up, another person can build on that and you can do it, or you can ask a totally independent question. So can we start with you, Mohan? Hello?
Yeah, I'm here, Ram.
Please, can you start, ask, something about the client awareness, whatever the question that you choose, that's up to you.
Stephanie, when your manager, spoke to you and spoke to you perhaps a little harshly after the client feedback, were you surprised? Was that something you expected, or was it a complete surprise?
Completely surprised, because totally contradiction what I learned from the client.
Okay. So Vivek, would you like to follow up Mohan's question with something else?
Yes. Stephanie, how did you take it when you learned about this experience?
I think because I received my manager's email first, so I just very quickly to read email and then have an assumption that was a complaint, and my manager asked me to report to her what was happening. So what I learned is calm down first to understand what my manager received from the client, and also to ensure what I learned from my client first, and then I will have a bigger picture to understand what is going on.
Okay, Vijay.
Stephanie?
Yes.
What made you feel unsafe in this incident?
Because so far I did 50 clients for the company. So far my feedback was exceed expectations, but I never have any negative feedback. So at that moment when I received that email from my manager, I felt shocked what happened and quite stressful. I want to be the best coach in my mind.
Okay. Aarti, are you now okay with your mind?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, Ram. So Stephanie, when all this was going on in your life, did you speak up to anybody in your friends or family circle, or did you decide on your own what should be your next step?
Yes. I think I need to release my stress. So I talked to one friend and I said I felt very, very depressed and disappointed. And when I read the email, but after I understood the whole situations, my manager misunderstood the feedback. I also shared to friends, I stopped on negative feedback. I concern what other people's feedback instead my real strength.
Can you just explain that a little bit, Stephanie? I didn't quite understand your feedback and other people's feedback. Yeah.
Okay. When I received the email from my managers, I shared with my friend, and I felt very, very disappointed. Mm-hmm. I didn't know what happened, why I had that negative feedback, but the client didn't tell me directly. But after I understand the whole situations, I have a reflections. Okay. First, I need to understand my strength and my feedback from my client to me directly first.
Okay, so
Yeah.
if I understood you correctly, you thought maybe the client gave you one feedback and gave the manager another feedback.
Yes.
But then that depressed you. But then once you found out this was a misunderstanding that got sorted out, you were okay. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, correct.
Okay, thank you. So now what I want to do is the other four of you, it's a slight change in terms of how the sixth lens is usually handled. Now, all of you, let's say, don't look at it as a specific situation like this, but all of you may have had a situation where there was a misunderstanding. It could be indirect communication, something happens. It could be gossip. It could be many other things, which therefore affect somebody else's opinion about you. And you may have been in a situation which was very similar to what Stephanie felt at this point in time till it was resolved. So what I want you to do is if you could think about something parallel that happened with you, and not about the incident, but what was your response at that time? Very briefly. Starting with Mohan. Hello. Or if any of the others can, yeah, please.
I need to pause at this moment, Ram. If you can come back to me a little later.
Okay. So any of the others, do any of you have a kind of a similar situation where you have been in, and what was your response?
Yeah. Ram, may I?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I tried to get information first.
Mm-hmm.
I tried to seek clarification,
Mm-hmm.
Though it was not easy.
Mm-hmm.
So when I tried doing that, I figured out many more things,
Mm-hmm.
Which gave me a better sense of control of the situation.
Okay.
I could understand the perspective.
Okay, fine. So you were willing to go back and ask for clarification and then get what was required to resolve the situation. Thanks. Aarti or Vivek?
Yeah, Ram. In a similar situation, I also did something similar to what Vijay said. And when the communication was done and we tried to explain in detail to each other, things became clear, and it was more a sigh of relief that finally the things are sorted out.
Okay. Vivek?
Yes. So actually, in reality, exactly what Stephanie faced is what happened with me.
Mm-hmm.
Got depressed and completely shattered in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm.
I think what learning I've drawn from that situation is to calm down completely and ask questions before coming to any conclusion and starting getting depressed.
Okay. Mohan, do you have anything at this point in time to add, please?
Yeah, so a similar incident. So whenever anybody criticizes me, my first instinct is to believe that yes, I have screwed up in some way. So what I tend to do is first check very carefully whether I've screwed up or in what way what I have done or said could be misinterpreted before I go and seek a clarification from them. Before the logical process kicks in, the first thought which emerges, okay, I've screwed up somewhere. So I kind of find it easy to believe that I may have screwed up.
Okay. 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 So this is what is called the fifth lens, just to help you understand what the process is. And the sixth lens is about the supervisor's own awareness. Let's say, for instance, now each one of you is a supervisor to Stephanie, and in her own case, I would like her to think of being supervisor if it had happened to somebody else. Let us slightly change the context. That if you were in the position of Stephanie's manager in such a situation, what would have been your aware response in handling the situation? Not to give her subordinate a difficult time.
It's pretty straightforward for me.
Yeah.
I would call Stephanie and show her what the client has written.
Yeah.
And ask her, what do you think he meant by that?
Okay.
What do you think the client meant by that?
Yeah. Okay. Excellent. Okay. Others, Mohan, Aarti, whoever wants to jump in, please.
Ram, I think I would talk to Stephanie and understand uh, how she has experienced and let her define how her experience was,
Mm-hmm.
and then discuss with her how come it is so different, and that probably could try and narrow the gap.
Okay. How would it narrow the gap if she doesn't know what the feedback from the client was?
Yes. So first, when she narrates how her experience was, which was terrific, and then I would read out what I've received from the client, and try and jointly understand. I mean, how could it be so different?
Okay. So still it is like what Mohan said, that you would show her what the client said and then ask for her version of it rather than telling her that she did a bad job. Is that what you're saying?
That's right.
Okay. Yeah. Vijay, Aarti?
Yeah, what I would do, one more thing. When I get a response of this nature, which is very negative about one of my teammates, I will first engage with the client and try to understand specific situation and facts and get some more information with which I can context and present that to Stephanie, instead of just giving, a summary conclusion saying that you were terrible or whatever. So I would do that.
Yeah. So what would be those facts? Where would you get them from?
I would speak to the client. So I think, the fact that I have served, we serve their client puts that onus on the client to clarify to us saying what exactly went wrong.
Okay. Good point. Aarti?
Yeah, same as Vijay Ram. I think it's important to speak to the client and then to speak to Stephanie before, it's important to have a 360-degree view before you jump into a conclusion and write to your employee or your reportee. So it's important to speak up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Stephanie, so if you were to think about your own situation, had you been in the manager's place, what would you have done?
I think I will support the team first to understand what is firstly I think I will appreciate all the works for the team or the coach, and then to understand the whole situations for all the section with the client. And also during the conversation, share the feedback to me, and find that we have the feedback from the clients. And then because my managers, I want to give you some feedback. She is always nervous, no matter what kind of a feedback. She is very nervous because she is result oriented. So if during the conversation at the very beginning is just a normal talk, it will not have a psychological uncertain or stressful situation to the team.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
So now the last question, which is a last lens in a way, again, slightly different from how it is usually done, is I would like each one of you to think about, this whole thing is about feedback, okay, at the end of the day, in a simplified sense, that how the feedback should be given and how in this particular case, the feedback was not given properly, and then it put the receiver of the feedback in not a very nice, emotionally safe, psychologically safe situation. So systemically, very quickly, what would each one of you think in an organization managers should do to be able to provide valuable feedback, effective feedback? Would you like to start?
Yeah, I start first. I always use constructive feedback because with evidence, people knows what is going on. Instead, you're well done, you are good, or you are bad. Okay. I will use a constructive feedback.
Okay, thanks. Mohan?
I would start in a similar fashion, which is I would ask the person to themselves.
No, I don't want to say, no, 1 minute, Mohan. I don't want to say you as an individual, but I'm just saying in a systemic way, how do you think managers should give feedback?
Okay. I think managers should invite the other person, the coach or the recipient, to reflect on their own this thing, and perhaps share their own perceptions of what they felt, express themselves, their own feelings about what they felt about that thing, and try to examine what could be what could explain some of the differences in the way they're looking at the same piece of work.
Okay, Vivek.
So as I understand, the systemic I actually is about the larger situation or the global organizational. So I think it would be trying to talk about the context. I mean, the entire coaching exercise that happened. So try and include. So right now, I think that so far we have only spoken about coach and the feedback from the client. So I think we will try and create more around the environment in which it happened. How was it, and who all were there, and what all happened. So it's more of the organizational view, which I think needs to be looked at.
What would that be? Very briefly, what would that be?
Not sure if I would know what that would be.
Okay, we'll leave it at that. Because at this point in time, what I see is really how do you give feedback, which is one of the most important things that an executive should learn. And organizationally, sure. And if it comes to your mind, maybe you can share it later. That'll be useful as well. Yeah, Vijay and Aarti, what about your feedback, awareness?
So Ram, what I think is important is to have a one-to-one with the reportee, and to explain him and to also understand from him as to what are the gaps, and more important is to give the improvement areas, and not a mail or whatever. So I think communication is the key.
Okay.
Yeah.
Vijay?
Feedback and feedback systems should rest on 3 pillars: evidence-based, balanced, and proactive.
Okay.
I think if these 3 elements are sort of ingrained into feedback systems, we can do a far better job, and we can empower our managers to do a far better job.
Okay. Thanks a lot. Guys, we just have a couple of minutes left. So what I just want those of you, and so unfortunately we don't have the time really to take every people to observe. But what I would like to, we can continue in the next session. We can continue the conversation in a slightly different way, in a segue. But what I would like you to think about is this. We started with, in a teamwork, about team safety, psychological safety. And of course, we picked one particular issue at random. In this particular case, it turned out to be something which related to feedback. And there were thoughts which were coming up, greater awareness which was being built into feedback. We could have gone much, much deeper. We don't have the time for it. But in a real life conversation, if you were allowed a couple of hours, maybe more, usually teamwork, I do about minimum of 3 hours, without which it's very difficult to do. So if you go into that, there could be tremendous awareness that can get created in the team about specific ways in which, let's say, the organization or the team is functioning. Like what Vivek said is very important. In a larger context, is there something organizational that needs to be done? And we could have taken anything else. I mean, like, for example, Aarti came up with this issue about a superior passing the buck on to somebody else and blaming. And this also could resonate with many people. So you could go deeper into that and create a discussion on what makes people insecure and what is it that can be done. So the process, how we went about it, using the 7 lenses of the 7-eyed model, in terms of a situation with a group of people, in this particular case 4 or 5, you could expand. Of course, it gets a little more time consuming with a larger group. What I therefore really want you to understand about this particular session is, how is the process done? And what I would like to do is, those of you who want the recordings, just please come back to us and ask for the recordings. Go to the contact and just ask for the recording. We'll be putting it up shortly. And maybe next time, if you would like to have a deeper discussion on this, what went on? What benefit did it accrue? And I'm hoping that the 5 of you who were part of the team would be there, and you can share what actually happened to you at that point in time, being part of the team. But that's important. Was there a great awareness that came up for you? Was there a greater discovery of your emotional states as well as the issue veered towards the feedback and what happened and so on? So with that, I'll close today. We are on top of the hour. And once again, for those of you who require the CCEO, it is team safety. Just keep the reference of the day and the topic, and at a later point in time, you can accumulate and bring it back. And I hope this session was useful to all of you. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Ram.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ram.
Yep. Okay.
Thank you, Ram. Thank you for the opportunity.
Okay.
Thanks, Ram.
So hope, I hope the volunteers are all going to be there next time. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Thank you, Ram.
Take care.
Thanks, Ram.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Good night.
Bye. Good night.
Good night.
Thank you, Ram.
Good night.
Yeah. Bye-bye.